And so I'm going to put this up. Great. Okay, so are we here? Are people back from their coffee break? Just write a quick yes in the chat box so I can make sure you're all back. Oh, don't worry, Ivana. If you missed the first lecture, you'll get it on video. Great. So we're here. Excellent. Okay, let's get started. Yes. Great. Still surviving. Good job, guys. Excellent. Great. So we got another 45 minutes together and then on to 2 great sessions with 2 other speakers. Perfect. Let's get going with everyone can shine. So here, a little quote again, just to get us started out. We have here opening thoughts. Sometimes being a great teacher means learning to function in a dysfunctional environment. Save your fighting strength until you have enough experience to be taken seriously and until you know what battles to fight. So, like I said, part of teaching is working with mixed levels. It will be that way, I think, for the rest of our teaching lives. So we have to sort of find techniques and strategies to work with this. So what we're going to do in this session, and there's a lot in this session, I hope I can get through it all. We have a warm-up, things we can shine at, and helping students shine. Like I said in the first session, you'll be getting a PDF summary of the slides. For those of you who weren't with us in the first session, my name is Nina. I am from Canada. I have my Canadian flag, my Canadian raccoon, who's saying hello to everybody here. And we are going to start our session. So let's take a look. Let's see, what do we find in class? So we have some pictures here to help us decide what kind of students do we have in class. We have here a rabbit and a snail. We have some students who are very, and some students who are a bit, what words could we use there? We have some students who are, and some students who are, exactly. So we've got some energetic students, some laid back students, some students who learn quickly, some students who take a little bit longer to learn. We can see here in the second image on the trampoline, we have some students who are, and some students who are, we have some students who are, oh, look at that, your grandson lives in Toronto, fantastic. We have some students on the trampoline who are high flyers, that's right, eager beavers, very good. And we have some who are a little lower or maybe don't jump quite as high as their classmates. Some students take it on the safe side. Good job, God, you guys are great with these English expressions. On the far right, we have some students who like working and other students who like being. So we have some students exactly who are more open, more gregarious, more extroverted, and we have others who are more introverted. And again, sometimes I'm in playgrounds at schools and there'll be a little kid over in this corner looking at the ants, looking at an anthill, looking at the flowers, and the teachers will say, oh, you know, he never plays with anybody. He doesn't want to be part of the group. And I always say, but is he happy? You know, is the kid happy? You know, so I'll sometimes walk over to the little boy or girl and say, what are you up to? Oh, I'm looking at the ants. I'm looking at the flowers. Are you fine? Are you happy? Happy? You know, it's like, okay, well, go back to the teacher. He's happy. Just looking at the flowers. You know, that we don't all have to always be being sociable with other people. Another thing is if the kid's being bullied or not part of the group for a reason when they want to be part of the group, but sometimes kids just want to work on their own and be by themselves. So no worries there. And then we've got 2 suitcases. We've got 2 suitcases. So some kids can take in a lot of information. They can fill that bag, and other people have a smaller bag to fill, but they just don't, they're not capable at that moment of taking in more information. So we've got fast and slow, high and low, introverted, extroverted, kids with different capacities to take in information. So these are things that we'll find in the class, and this can sometimes even vary day to day according to the learner. So now some true and false questions for you. So let's take a look at the first question. True or false? There are mixed abilities and mixed levels in my class. True or false? If any of you have a class that isn't, if any of you say false, that they're all the same level, I will come and work at your school. As it's not easy to find a homogeneous group in today's classes, definitely. Fantastic. So most of us are saying true here. Most of us are saying true. And I think that's been my case. I've been teaching for over 30 years, and I don't think I've ever had a homogeneous group except when I'm teaching private lessons. That, you know, you always have some sort of a mix, even when we're just teaching 2 or 3 students. Next question. This one might differ for some of you. I find it challenging to manage mixed levels. I find it challenging to manage the different levels in my class. True or false? Wow, okay, so there we're getting lots of different answers. Okay, so we do find it challenging. Welcome to teaching. You know, it is challenging. I think that's what keeps us ticking. That if our jobs were boring and routine, we probably wouldn't enjoy them as much. Great, so Valentina doesn't find it as challenging. That's great, Valentina. So give us some ideas as we're going through the session. Very good. And the last question here, your last true and false question. I use different ideas and techniques for mixed levels in my classes. I use different ideas and techniques. What do you think there? Do you use different ideas and techniques for your mixed levels? Okay, and again, most of us are saying true. That's great. You guys are good teachers. Great. Okay, perfect. So that was just a warm up for us. So let's move on. So I think we're all in the same boat, more or less. So here it says, the biggest mistake in the past centuries of teaching has been to treat all students as if they were variants of the same individual, and thus feeling justified to teach them all the same subject in the same way. So quote by Howard Gardner, the multiple intelligences man. So again, I think this is something that we sometimes try to do, that we try to teach everybody the same way. And unfortunately, they don't all learn the same way. So we do need to vary our techniques and vary the resources we use. So now a little activity for you guys. Think of something you're good at. Now this can be something professional or something personal. So you might say here, well, you know, I'm good at lesson planning, or I'm good at English grammar, or I'm good at, try to think of something quite concrete, like, you know, I'm good at making spaghetti carbonara, or I'm good at, I don't know, I'm good at dancing salsa, or I'm good at playing tennis. Oh, great. So we've got some people who are good at writing, at knitting, at singing, at languages, at generating ideas. You're good at teaching. Great. Good at singing. Oh, I wish I were good at singing. Good at climbing. Very nice. Good at treating children well. Good at listening, at baking, at painting. Very nice. Gardening. Great. So lots of different skills there. So next question. How did you get good? So those of you who are good at knitting, at swimming, and cooking, and archery, and climbing, how did you get good? Practice. Learning and practicing through communication. Very good. Through doing it. Bravo. Through practicing. So most of us, through studying, through hard work. Very good. Lots of hard work. Exactly. So this goes back to the grit, resilience, persistence. Yeah, maybe you were born with some certain talents. Okay, very good. Overcoming many difficulties. Very good. And now finally, how do you know you're good? How do you know you're good at it? You say, oh, I'm a good cook. I'm good at baking. How do you know you're good at baking? I'm good at climbing. Apart from still being alive, which makes you probably a good climber, but you know, how do you know you're a good climber? Very good. So you feel it. You get a certification for it. You get the opinions of others. Very good. You get positive feedback. You show your success. You get comments from other people. You get praise. Very good. So again, I think this is something, this little activity that we're doing right now is something that you could even do with your students. Very good. Everyone eats my cakes and says they like them. So you know you're doing it well. Oh, people want your autograph. Oh, that's because you got really famous. Very good. You can compare yourself, you get praise. So this is something you can talk about with your students as well. What are you good at? How did you get good? How do you know you're good? Well, this applies to learning English as well. So if you're not good at English and you're struggling with English, you have to use the same techniques as things that you're good at. You have to practice and have hard work, make an effort, be resilient, and you need feedback from others. You need opinions and feedback from others. So these three things, it's very important that students understand that they understand that nobody was born speaking the second language perfectly. Nobody was born knowing how to climb mountains or bake cakes, that we all learned it through trial and error and through feedback from others. So it's just something to think about for you and for your students. And as it says here, the success of education depends on adapting teaching to individual differences amongst learners. And look at when this quote is from. It is not from yesterday. 4th century BC, philosophers. So this is nothing new to education. This is nothing new. This is just something we are learning to do together. Very good. Exactly. It says here, sometimes when people are envious towards you is when you know you've reached your goal. Very good. Fantastic. So let's take a look now at some ideas. So helping students shine. How can we discover the different strengths and talents of our students and build on them? Do you talk about this with your students? Do you work on it with them? Do you say, what are your strengths? What do you find more difficult? What helps you? Very good. So we might use activities, tests, analysis, diagnostics. Very good. Observation. Fantastic, Mariam. Being attentive. Very good answers. Using formative assessment. Excellent. Level tests if we want to know their strengths in language. Very good. Very good, Natalia. We need to discover our own. We need to know ourselves before we can know them. Very good, through observation and through testing. Fantastic. So let's look at some ideas here. We can use personalization for their individual needs. We can use, as we talked about in the first session, graded tasks, group work, and team building. So this is sort of extending on what we did in the first session. Very good, Margarita, communicating with them, giving them a safe atmosphere. Very good. So we can do surveys, questionnaires, feedback sheets with them. So let's take a look at personalization. So the implementation of personalized learning creates an atmosphere for the students to meet the needs of the students, honor their differences, build ownership. And personalized learning also allows students to express their curiosity and put forth their best work using different tools and strategies. So this is the idea of personalization. So some ways to make learning more personal, we could be offering students a chance to make choices. So we're going to take a look at that now. What choices can we give our students? This is giving them a bit more security and autonomy about what they like to do and don't like to do. We can discuss progress with the students. So some of you have said formative assessment, which is a great idea. Very nice. Valentina says, I asked them to write or draw, say what they like and don't like in English class or about learning English. So discussing the progress, varying the classroom layout. So sometimes we say, oh, I can't move the desks, I can't do this. Sometimes it's just as easy as taking the front row and that they move to the back row and the other rows move up, or moving people to different sides of the class, or rotating the row. Just so not everybody's always in the front row, or not everybody's always sitting next to the window. That that we vary the layout a little bit in the class to meet the needs of different students. Take time to find out about their interests. We're going back to school soon. Find out what they like, find out what they don't like, find out what they're interested in. It's always much easier to catch someone's attention if you're coming at them with something they're already interested in. So try to find out about your students' interests. So on the first task here, we're going to look at personalization. So some of you are saying testing. What I sometimes do for personalization on tests is I give choices. So we have A, B, C, D, E here. Obviously, you don't do all of them at the same time, but let's take a look at some options. So for A, imagine you're doing a quick test with 20, 25 questions. You might say, okay, you have 3 options. You can answer all 25 questions. You can answer 13 questions of your choice and write a paragraph, or you can write 2 paragraphs. So, you know, whatever the topic of your test is, you can then give them options. So a bit like the graded test the graded task we looked at with the writing. You're giving them a choice. You explain what the grading system is and you give them a choice. Letter B, you ask students to write 1 question for the test. So what I do with this one is I put them in groups. I have them look through the unit and I say, you need to write 1 or 2 questions for the test next week. Then when I'm writing the test, I put those questions on the tests. So when they're doing the test, they then say, what's my question? Oh, that's the one we wrote. You know, they come up with the same types of questions you would write anyway, but it gives them an opportunity. So we have a question here. What do we do to the ones who don't bother and pick the lower level task? That's giving us information on them. You know, if we have a high level student who's picking a low level task, well, I can talk to them about it, or I can encourage them to try to do a higher level task. You know, it's not the end of the world. We all do that. I mean, when I go to spinning class on the bicycle, sometimes I'm in a lazy mood and I do the least effort possible. And then other days I make a bigger effort. Maybe it's because I'm tired. Maybe it's because I don't like the class. Maybe it's because I don't like the teacher. So, you know, find out why they're not performing to their maximum. C, take-home tests. You know, we sort of say, oh, no, I can't have them open the book. I can't be giving them the answers. If they don't know the information, they don't know it. Book open or book closed. So sometimes students get nervous in test environments, and having their notebook there, whether they use it or not, might help them to relax. Open-ended questions on tests, like sometimes I'll give the test and the test is 3 things I learned this unit. Open-ended test. Exactly, prove what you know and that the students show their knowledge and skills. Writing a poem, singing a song, fantastic. And then E, we had individual, pair, group options on a test. So maybe I do 15 test questions and then I say, you have an option now to get extra points working in a small group and answering the following question. So things like that. So like I said, you don't have to use all of these. You don't have to use any of these. Some of you are telling me the options you could try. Which ones could you try or not? Why or why not? So you might say, oh, I could never do C because the policy at our school is not to have open tests. So just, again, we're not going to go into this in great detail, but which ones could you use or have you used? So that's great. Some of you are saying quite a few of those, which is good. So making tests more varied can also help your students understand that there are different types of showing, different ways of showing their knowledge. This is another one. And again, maybe this is too much. You know, there are 9 options here. You know what this game is, tic-tac-toe, like 3 in a row, knots and crosses. So here it's think-tac-toe. So in this case, what you're doing is a vocabulary activity, obviously with students who are maybe a bit older. And what you do is you say, okay, you have to pick one of the options for homework, or you have to pick 3 in a row for homework, or work in a group of 6. You have to pick 3 in a row and each pair does one of the tasks. So again, just showing you that there are different ways of working on things. You don't have to use this format. Maybe you just give them 2 options for homework. You say, okay, we have to study our vocabulary tonight. Your homework is, or write a story using 10 words from the vocabulary list, or design a board game using the vocabulary from the unit. They decide if they want to write a story or make a game. Or you could say, write a poem, draw a picture, do an illustration, use a comic strip. So these are all quite creative tasks. So again, for you, which number would you pick? You say, oh, I would pick 6 because I love writing poems. And which one wouldn't you pick? Which one would you say, oh, that would be torture for me. That would be terrible. If I had to draw, I would die, you know. So which ones would you say? Which ones would you say, yes, I would do that. I could do that one. Very good. This is for you personally. For you personally, if I gave you this, which one would you say, hey, that would be cool? And which one would you say, oh my God, no way. There's no way I would do that one. No to number 4. No to number 4. Okay. No songs and raps. Very good. Oh, you could do all of them. Great. Okay. So again, show these things to your students. Maybe not 9 options, maybe 3 or 2, but have them choose. So then when we come back the next day to correct the homework, it's way more interesting to correct the homework when you've got one group singing a rap, one group telling a poem, one group showing pictures, than just, Martha, activity 1, question 1, what's the answer? True. Martha, question B, answer B, what's the answer? It's so much more interesting. If we have personal homework, then the correcting of the homework also becomes much more exciting. So just things to think about there. And like I said, we'll be sending you all of these slides. So if we look at this now in a course book situation, oh, your student would be interested in 1, 3, 5, and 9. Great, Mariama. Great. So here, if we're looking here in the textbook, if we look at this part here, you know, you can see here, even in the book, you've got some structure and guidance for our grammar builder. So for our students who need support, security, help, we've got color-coded sentences. And then if we move on, we have our personalization. So we're doing 2 things at once. We've got our structured grammar, color-coded sentence frames for them to work with, our little reminder of what we need to keep an eye on. And then at the bottom, I can shine with our personalization task. And then of course, we can have them working together to share their answers. So we don't have time, we're not going to do this now, but I could ask you, you know, what time do you normally wake up? Or what time do you normally go to bed? Or what time do you watch TV during the day? And then they can compare their answers. And maybe we can even push ahead and do something like a maths graph to show their results. So like I said, even within the textbook, you have some very nice activities. So looking here at graded tasks. We looked at one graded task in the first session. And now what I would like you to do is first just think, don't write, just think. If your name begins with the letter A to the letter M, how do you support weaker students in your class? And if your name begins with the letter N to Z to Z, how can you challenge your stronger students? So let's begin with our group, A to M, only names A to M. How do you support your weaker students, your students who are a bit slower? You give them praise, fantastic. Very good. Take into account their little steps, encouraging them. Very good. Great, Daria, I love that. Even I make mistakes. Appreciate their abilities. Excellent, hit them, the scaffolding. Yeah, give them a little bit less to do. For example, you might just be doing, okay, do activity 1 in the workbook, and there are 10 questions. And you just say to the kid, do 5. Try to do 5. Pick the 5 you can do. Helping them with their tasks, giving them step-by-step, not criticizing them. Very good. So a lot of this has to do with the effective part of not, you know, making sure that they feel safe to make mistakes, and that it's a long process. Very good. Give them more time, give them help. Very good. What about for our stronger students? What about the letters N to Z? N to Z. What do you do to challenge those students who are already doing very well in class? Very good. Co-facilitate, give them extra material, do a project. Very good. So you've got the stronger kids in class. What do you do with them? Let them make choices. Great. Give them the next level up of tasks. Help them help others. Very nice. Very, very good. Yeah, they can check how their students work. You're the teacher. Go and check the work. Do some projects. Again, they need praise. Fantastic. Be the leaders. Fantastic ideas. Great. I think we coincide with a lot of these things. And I think quite often when we talk about mixed abilities, we focus a lot on the lower students and helping them. But we also forget that for the higher students, it has to be, pardon me, extremely frustrating to be sitting in class and saying, I know this already, and we've done this already. You know, so we do have to help them as well, not just help the lower level students. Very, very good ideas. Monitor the situation, think with them. Fantastic. So if we look here, you know, you might provide answers for them, but in a jumbled order or with an extra answer. Oh, Natalia, thank you. I'm sometimes really nasty teacher too, eh? It's not always fun and games with me. Some of my students probably wouldn't want to repeat, but thank you very much. So here, like we said, provide an answer in a jumbled order, missing a couple of words, give them two options, pre-teach the vocabulary, grade them on their effort rather than their level of success at the beginning. You know, this doesn't mean that when they have to do the final exam, you say, oh, you made a good effort, no problem. We do need to grade them, but keep in mind that it takes time. Allow more thinking time, wait time, preparation time. Quite often we ask a question and immediately we want the answer. You know, they're kids, they're in a second language. Say, wait, don't answer yet. Think, give them thinking time and let them compare their answers before doing the feedback with them. When we have our stronger students, personalization, let them react personally. Get them to explore new vocabulary using dictionaries, online games, you know, word banks. Use a correction code to encourage self-correction. You know, explain to them how you're correcting their writing. Use rubrics with them so they can see how they're being graded and what they're being graded on. Get them to write questions for others or to help you set up the games, and ask them for more justification for their answers. So when, even in the workbook, you know, if they give you the answer, you say, why is it smaller? Why did you use smaller instead of the smallest there? And have them explain, well, because I'm comparing. You know, so push them a little bit further, you know, where the other students, you might say, is it smaller or the smallest? And help them with these other students who are higher levels. You can ask them why, to justify their opinions. So let's take again a look at some examples here. So here we have some resources for grammar. So the structure very clearly presented at the top, which would be support for our weaker students. We have a very simple activity here. Look at the pictures, find the 6 differences, and write the sentences. Well, for our lower level students, it might be find the 6 differences and write 1 sentence. And we might ask the older ones to, you know, the stronger ones, to find 6 differences, write a sentence, draw 2 new items, and show a partner and have them find the differences. You know, so extending it a bit more. And then here at the bottom, for those who are a bit stronger, you can have them do an extension activity. Of course, Marzena, go ahead. What's your question? So these are some examples of photocopyable material that can help support your students. And I'm just going to wait for Marzena's question as I put up the next part here. Yeah, tell me, what's your question about the tests, Marzena? There's one group. I know it's tough to type your question, poor thing. And you would need 2 groups. What do you mean by that? Like, you know, for example, I can sometimes do test A and test B at the same time with the same group. They're just receiving different worksheets. You know, I've sometimes even done test A and test B, where test A is a very sort of closed test and the other one is a very open test. So you don't actually have to be working with 2 groups. You can actually just vary your testing technique within that group. Does that help, Marzena? And if not, Marzena, if you want, between sessions, I don't know about the modifying the test from Pearson. So Marzena, keep that question and let's ask the Pearson team afterwards if you can adapt the tests themselves. Very good. Okay, and then Maja says, test C is for students with disabilities. Fantastic. So yeah, you've got graded tests, but I don't know about adapting the test, but the Pearson team will be able to answer that for us. So good question, Marzena. And then here on the right, just continuing looking at these different ways of working with students, we have a project plan to do a show. You know, so again, here the students are given gradual build-up. So, you know, look at the first activity, look and write. There's a table, there's a bench, there's a house, there are windows. Most kids should be able to do that. What are you going to do? So now it's getting a little bit higher. Read and choose the correct words, a little bit higher. You know, but then they've got all of the dialogues they need to do their time to shine activity. So again, this idea of gradual work up, gradual build up, where everybody has a chance to succeed. And you don't expect everybody to do everything well, but that everybody can do something. And then you've got your show program and your examples. And this idea of modeling and giving them the help they need is essential at these levels. So now one of our classic problems, and I'm sure you all have lots of ideas for this. What do we do with the fast finishers? What do we do with the fast finishers? Finished. Teacher finished. Very good. So yeah, the extra task technique. Have a worksheet. Good. Think some more. Rest. Very good. Free choice. Have them prepare an activity. Very good. Check the progress with others. Lovely idea. And what's the very first thing to do? What's the very first thing to do? So when my student says, teacher, finish, what's the first thing I have to do? Because quite often the kid is saying, finish, but they haven't actually finished, that they actually just rushed through it and they didn't do it right. So I pop by the desk and I say, okay, let's take a peek. Oh, I think you can do better on question 4, and you might want to take a look at question 6. You know, sort of thing. And if they really are finished, task 2 for me as the teacher is take a peek at where the other students are. Because if one student has finished the 6 questions and the rest of the students are on question 5, well, there's no point in giving that kid extra work. I just say, wait, everybody's almost finished. If the kid has finished all 6 and the rest of the class are still getting their books out, well, yeah, then I do have to find a bit of a solution for them. Exactly, and fast finishers can help others, exactly. And again, that depends on the student. Some students like helping other students. Some students look at me and say, that's your job, not my job. So some ideas here. You can have a project like a class newsletter, or for example, with the little kids, with the kindergarten kids, I have like a mural every month. So like underwater mural, farmland mural, outer space mural. So they have some big paper on the wall. And then what they have to do is when they finish, add something to that. So they can either be making a little cutout to stick on it, or they can be drawing a picture on the wall, or whatever it is. So yeah, so we can check our work quietly. We can work on a newsletter, make vocabulary cards, flashcards, invent a game, invent an activity, revise your work, revise somebody else's work, study, sit quietly and wait. Sometimes I think we forget about sit quietly and wait, you know, because when they're adults and they go to the doctors or they go to the bank, nobody's going to come out and entertain them. They just have to get on with it. So sitting quietly is also another option. Peer tutoring, playing a game, doing extra homework, being the teacher, doing a crossword, doing a quiz, writing a story. Yeah, sitting quietly, you're right. That might be a bit of a high expectation to sit quietly. Just sit still, more or less quiet is something we can aim for. But you're right, sitting quietly, depending on the child and the age group, might be more of a challenge than it seems. Very good. So some ideas here, looking at that, you even have extra activities for fast finishers provided by the publisher. So you've got extra practice pages for the students, and they can pick one of the activities or all of them. Very good, yeah, give them something to color. And then here you've got some things like, you know, I can shine activities, extra time activities, you know, so things like this. Make a world better show. In the show I'm going to, write some sentences. Extra time, make the world a better place, use the letters to make a new word, now make your own puzzle, or things like these codes. So, you know, now you've got the different code set up for the magic words, and now write your own code message. So there are all sorts of things you can do with these learning. Create a bingo game, exactly. So there are lots of things. So one of the best things you can do for others is help them recognize how to improve. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, students who say finish, don't get a sweet. That's a good bargaining deal. Well done. So here, when we're doing group work, You might want to assign roles. I think you probably know this now, but when you're working in a group where some kids tend to do everything and some kids do nothing, give them roles. You might have the person who's going to make the presentation, the person who has to get the materials, the person who has to keep track of the time, the person who has to do the drawings, the person who has to write the sentences. So assigning them roles can help a lot. And then everybody is involved. They know what's expected of them. They can keep on track, and we can have a more developed, finished, solid, final product. And you can then sort of rate the group and also rate the individual effort. Seating, how are we going to seat them for a pair work and group work? Make sure the desks are arranged so that they can communicate well. This is not always possible, depending on the size of your class, depending on the rules about moving furniture, but try to keep that in mind. And then for group work and project work, you can do creative projects, you know, an article for a website. Well, this is great for kids when they're finished early as well, you know, so you can be doing this daily news as your monthly project, and then you can have the kids work on that if they finish early. Play a futures game, move the spinner around the board. And then this is lovely, this idea of how to work on the projects, researching, planning, creating, and sharing. Giving them guidance, a checklist to go through. Did you do those things? Well, now you know why you didn't get as good a grade, because you actually didn't use the materials you were expected to, or your presentation wasn't clear. So helping them understand what is expected of them and how to do it. Pair work, the same thing. You know, it's great. You're given these things. You know, 30 years ago when I started teaching, we were desperate for these sorts of things. You've got controlled pair work activities tied into the unit you're working on, which is great. And then, you know, some open-ended tasks. I might do this, I might not. They can share their ideas, values. We're looking at global goals like food, sustainability, and then discussion questions. So these are obviously for students who are a bit older, but just showing how pair work can be done in different ways. Always allow them time to think of their answers before they have to actually work in the pairs. Team building can be another good thing to do with your students, which helps to develop a positive environment and helps them to all work together. So doing collaborative tasks can be complicated if they don't feel safe to share their ideas, if they don't feel safe to learn from their mistakes. So these team building things can help in differentiated classes. One of the things I use a lot is this one called Just Like Me. So I get the students, if they're old enough, to write 2 or 3 sentences about themselves, which can be true or can be false, on a piece of paper. For example, I can sing, I am 10 years old, I like science, I live in blah. So you can structure these however you want. You might say only I am sentences, or only I've got sentences, or only I can sentences. You decide. So you collect the sentences, you know, I can climb, I can bake, I can drive, I can whatever. You have the sentences. You take the sentences. This will also help you check whether we're having grammar problems. And then what you do is you say the sentence out loud. If it's true for the student, they say, just like me. Or you can use it. Another technique is to repeat the sentence. So I say, I can rollerblade. And the kids in the class who can rollerblade say, I can rollerblade. The kids who can't are silent. So for now, let's just try it with just like me. So if I were to say, for example, my birthday is in September. Any just like me? Anybody else who has a birthday in September? If you don't have a birthday in September, you can just relax. If you do have a birthday in September, just like me. Okay, Anika's birthday is in September. Very good. Only Anika? Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay, Maria as well. Oh, just like my son. Okay. Well done, Marina. Good take there. Let's try another one. I can sing. I can sing. Not my case. I can sing. Okay, so you get the idea. So either online, in the class, you get the sentences from the students. And this is very interesting because maybe one of the kids says something like, my favorite video game is blah. You've never even heard of the video game. And suddenly 2 or 3 kids in the class say, just like me. And the kids themselves sort of look around. I didn't know you liked that game, or I didn't know you can also climb. So it gives them an opportunity to find out about things they have in common. So we just tried a few. Fact or fiction. I'm not going to do this one because we're running out of time, but I think it's quite logical. I think you know how this one works. You ask the students to write a true and a false sentence about themselves. They then show the sentences to the partner, and they have to decide which one's true and which one's false. It's so popular. Exactly. So this one I'm not going to do with you guys because I think you more or less know how it works. This is also a very nice warm-up for the first day of school. So, you know, give them some sentences about yourself. Exactly. 2 truths and 1 lie, fact or fiction. But do this at the beginning of the school year if you'd like to find out a little bit more about your students. Star sharing is very nice for the younger learners. So you give them a very simple star, or you have them draw a very simple star. And then you say, okay, at the top of your star, what's your favorite color? On the right of the star, what's your favorite animal? So you have them write the 5 sections around the star with their name in the middle. And then you can either post the stars, you can have them discuss the stars. And again, it gives them an opportunity to say, oh, I also like red. Oh, you like horses? I like donkeys, you know, whatever it is. So it gives them some information. And again, according to the age of the students, this can either be pictures, can be words, and if they get older, it can be a full sentence. So those are just, like I said, those are some team building activities, but there are endless team building activities. Make sure you try some. Additional ideas might be to do cultural activities with the class, you know, where people learn to be respectful and tolerant and value different culture. Understand that people are not all the same on the outside, but they're the same on the inside. Create some positive learning outcomes. Use diversity for civil education, and then comparing cultures. And again, I think it's very important when we talk about in our books, British culture or Canadian culture, that they also find the parallel in their own culture. So looking here, for example, becoming global citizens, you know, this idea here of looking at the world and trying to make it a better place to live in. So how can we help each other? What can we do? How can we shine? And then here, for example, fantastic videos, a cultural video where they're finding about different buildings in different parts of the world. And then, of course, as a follow-up here, now that they've got Edinburgh is the capital of, it's got buildings, these are the buildings, well, do now with your own country or with their own region, a similar text. And maybe they could even make their own video, you know, to show another class. So things like that. And then another thing we can do is we're just coming to the end here, cross-curricular activities to make language more meaningful. Exactly, as it says here, combinations of language and culture are paramount importance now. You know, so using cross-curricular, the same, this whole idea of teaching them to be lifelong learners, make learning real and meaningful, develop different skills for them, cognitive, social, psychological, not only be focusing on language, and then giving them the opportunity to use English as the tool. I'm so glad you're liking those books, Mariam. That's great, using Rise and Shine. So here, you've got some different possibilities here, you know, subject-specific lessons, finding out about some different types of vocabulary. And again, these excellent videos. You know, look at that one, the experiment lab. So they're gonna watch a video about animals, look at food chains. So you're just looking at what they've always looked at, but instead of a hawk has 2 legs, a snake hasn't got legs, a rabbit has got 4 legs, you know, so they're like, I know that, I've done that. We know how many legs the animals have. It's just pushing them into something new, into food chains or organisms or where you can find these things. So just helping them push their English a little bit more into the real world. So my friends, on that note, we are drawing to a close. Which of the ideas for the sessions do you use or could you use? Pick an option or 2. So we have here, reflecting on things we're good at, A, personalization activities, B, graded activities, C, pair work and group activities, D, team building activities, E, or cross-curricular. So just write, pick 1 or 2, all of them, great. If you can use all of them, that's fantastic. Pick 2. Oh, wow. Some of you are picking 3, picking all. Exactly. And again, if you're not used to doing these things, if you come from a more sort of traditional environment yourself, don't try to do it all in one day. You know, there's nothing wrong with sometimes having a little traditional day in class that we just do things the way we used to do them, but just try to once in a while at least start building into your repertoire some new techniques and ideas. So I hope, my friends, that that was useful. I hope this will help you go back to school with a bit more energy and a bit more enthusiasm. And now we're going to just finish with a very quick poem. This is our last activity, the closing. It's like a toast. And it says here, here's to the kids who are different, the kids who don't always get A's, the kids who have ears twice the size of their peers and noses that go on for days. Here's to the kids who are different, the kids they call crazy or dumb, the kids that don't fit with the guts and the grid and dance to a different drum. Here's to the kids who are different, the kids with mischievous streaks. For when they have grown, as history's shown, it's their difference that makes them unique. So fingers crossed, we can help all of those unique learners in our class to shine and to become the best. And as it says here, our task is not to provide an education for the students we used to have, we want to have, or that exist in our dreams. Our task is to provide an education for the kind of students we do have. So good luck to all of you. How would you rate the session? Was it not very useful, useful, or very useful? Oh, 3. Okay, very good. I'm glad. It's tough to know with so many countries and so many teachers from different places, but I'm glad that that was some help to you. Thank you for joining us. Again, you have my web page there where you can find my links to my professional Facebook page, my web page, and on my web page, there's a contact sheet. So feel free, you know, there was one lady who said she was a Canadian living in Serbia, feel free to get in touch. Any of you who have any questions or comments, feel free to get in touch with me through the contact page on my webpage. You guys were great. Thank you for participating so much. And thank you to Pearson for inviting me. First time working with Pearson.